Then comes down to the last question, which is asked: is it ethical to strike? I think ethics is a big debate, and I don't get into that debate. Strike is a personal choice. You are offered an opportunity to strike. Obviously, doctors balloted, so majority of the doctors voted in favor of strike, and that is why strikes are going ahead. They're not mandatory, so even if someone voted yes for the strike action and then decides to not strike, they're allowed to. There's no coercion involved here. Even if you decide that you do not want to strike and then change your mind because someone ends up convincing you that you should, then you're allowed to. And no one should be persuading you in a way to change your mind. But if you voluntarily, for example, are watching my video and you end up changing your mind because whatever I say is making some sense, then yeah, the aim of the strike is to disrupt the service. And it's not to say that we don't want to work, because obviously whatever work is delayed, we will be catching up on it. So it's not going to be someone else who comes and catches up on the work. And not everyone from within our body will strike. So even on a junior doctor strike, people who were doing some essential services did not strike. Consultants were covering all the services. In consultant strikes, all the junior doctors who were there were covering for their consultant colleagues, even though there was no elective activity. Some people don't strike because of the financial burden. But obviously, every day we strike, we're losing money. So, and I think that's fair. We should lose money for the days we strike, but some people cannot afford to lose money. There are people who are in difficult financial situations. There are people whose mortgages have gone up and their salaries haven't gone up accordingly. The people who are single parents and have to look after their kids, send them to nurseries. Some people partially strike for the same reason, so they strike some days, not other days. And some people have been in a tricky situation. So, some consultants were part of the admin and they were tasked with the force of finding staffing during strikes. So it would be very awkward for them to then strike. And then there are other people who voted no for strike and maybe are not striking at all, but I don't think any of them will return whatever pay increase they get as a result of the strikes. I mean, no one's going to ask them to, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them will take home whatever they can get as a result of the strikes. It frustrates me when some state-sponsored channels are talking about, oh, a knee operation got delayed and a hip operation got delayed. But if you talk to them, the waiting list for these operations is not into months, but into years. And no one is talking about why did the wait time go up to a year so sharply. And I think it's very straightforward. It's just because the resources were misallocated, and the authorities who were sitting at the top, the health secretary, the government, and the finance secretaries, all of them were responsible for it. If you had put money, if you had provided the services, if you had hired workers, all of these surgeries could have happened much quicker and the waiting list would be much smaller right from the outset. It has happened right in front of my eyes, but then it's been growing year after year after year. And it's not really come down. Every winter, we see operations being cancelled because there's no beds in hospital. At the end of the day, you need more money to retain staff. And if you got more staff, you'll be able to open more theaters. If you got more theaters, you'll be able to provide more services. And if you provide more services, you'll be able to get rid of these waiting lists. So at the end of the day, you only get what you pay for. And if you want to pay for the services, then you will get the service. If you don't want to pay for the services, then you don't. And a very good example, very set out example is COVID. All the elective activity was halted during COVID. And that was a very clear indication that this healthcare system is crumbled, it's been crippled, it's actually been incapacitated down to bones. Whenever you have a critical system, there has to be a contingency planning. You should be working with extra staffing, not understaffing. The reason you should have extra staffing is that you cannot run a critical system at its breaking point forever. Because whenever a machine is running, the cogs will have some wear. There will be a point you'll have to turn a part of the machine down and repair it. But if you work the whole machine to the maximum capacity or over capacity, you're not going to have that opportunity to give any parts of that machine any downtime to help them recover, to help them look after themselves. And as a result, one after another part of that machine will break down, as one after another staff member of the NHS hospitals then breaks down, leaves work, and goes work somewhere else, leaving the remaining machine, the remaining part of NHS, even more stressed, even more crumbled. And whenever you go into one of these management meetings which happen, uh, the general tone is money is not going to solve problems. You need a different way. You cannot pay for an inferior, low level plastic material and expect to get a titanium knee replacement for the same cost. So you are only going to get what you pay for, and unless you start injecting some cash into NHS and try and repair this broken, crippled system, it is not going to repair itself. Now, the question here is whether or not there is any intention at the level of government to save the NHS, or is the intent to privatize the healthcare system based on the inefficiency of a system which has been deliberately crippled. Believe me, doctors will be better off in a private healthcare system. Uh, there's private healthcare system in New Zealand, there's private healthcare system in Australia, in America, and all over there, doctors are much well paid than over here. I can debate that in a separate podcast if you want me to. But for now, we are striking because we do not want to take the blame for this government's inability to prioritize healthcare for the general public. And that is why we strike. And that is why some of you may want to strike with me, and some of you may find it really hard. And if you're finding it hard, then you still have an option to not strike. No one can force you to strike. And on that note, I'll stop here. Subscribe to the channel, share it with friends. And if you've got any suggestions how to improve things, then please drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about the strikes and what you think is going to solve the problems that NHS faces these days. Take care, and Allah Hafiz.